And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. That is right, it is time. Time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some open discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some snips from the news and have a little bit of dialogue. Again, if you wanted to join the live portion, you can find it on YouTube on Coffee Talk and on Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting, podcasting on both channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that is at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon, as we get ready to dive off into the world of the ridiculous. And a little personal news, too. A little bit of personal news here, because something happened that I thought was pretty funny. My wife didn't, but I did. And as always, I do read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see what is going on. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge some people here really quickly. I see Helter is here today. Dragon, Cyberjack Sr. Brian is here. Holly is here. Doc Galt is here. And so is Miss Kitty. That is actually Miss Kitty laying in the chair behind me. Don't ask me to pick her up. She's feisty. Miss Kitty is not one to be handled very lightly. But as we get ready to jump off, before we jump off in that, and I think this ties in with what I talk about, how they're trying to push us in the direction of like mandatory voting. As you know, in many states, you are automatically registered to vote if you go to the DMV now, including Georgia, where I am. If you go to the DMV, they will register you to vote, whether you want them to or not. It's done without your knowledge or consent. It's just automatic. It used to be you would ask or you would be asked, but now they just automatically do it. And my wife doesn't like that. She doesn't want to vote. She doesn't want anything to do with it. She's sick and tired of it. She doesn't trust that system. Doesn't trust it at all anymore. No, she's done. And she went through all the rigmarole to try to get out of being registered. And you might remember me having talked about this before, about her journey to get unregistered from the system. I see H12 has joined us, as well as Miss is here, says haven't been here for a while. We're glad you could make it, as well as Raccoon joining us here today. So she bounced around all over the place. You know, she went down to the DMV. Hey, I want to be taken off of that. She was sick and tired of the phone calls and the text messages and the emails and all the cards and letters to the mailbox telling her to vote and who to vote for. She was sick of it. So I want to be unregistered. And they told her they couldn't do it. You got to go to this place. And she goes to the other place and they say, no, you've got to go here. And you go there, you got to talk to this person, but they're not here. Or you have to go talk to that person there. This went on for some weeks. And then she finally just gave up. Well, she started in again, okay, a few weeks back. And she bounced around, finally found someone, okay, at one of the DMVs. Yeah, I can do that for you. I'll take you off. Sat down with them, went in the computer, allegedly took her off of the voter registration, right? Yesterday, and I got to cover as much of this as I can because there's a lot of personal information on this. Gets her voter ID in the mail. Gets her voter ID in the mail with it's got the QR codes on it, and it's got a lot of personal information on here. And she was like, I thought I got off of this. Why am I getting a voter registration card? Because she's sick of it. She doesn't trust the system anymore. And I don't blame her. They're extremely invasive. So much so, hold on here. Let me see. I mean, I'm getting text messages from them, without getting into this too much, okay? And I'll put it back there. You can see that's a map actually. I don't want to show too much here, but they're texting me pictures of maps of my area with my house pinned. And it says, if you're registered to vote at blah, 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 records suggest you may not have been voting. It looks like you can still vote in the primary election Tuesday, May 21st. And then it gives me a bunch of addresses of where I can go in relation to where I live. So trying to intimidate me. Seems to us you haven't been voting. And we just want to make sure you know that we know exactly where you are. And you can go here, here, or here and vote. It's not too late. It's not too late. Doc says they thought I was going to say they were going to get picked for jury duty. No, it couldn't. Yeah, that would be just as bad. That would be just as bad. I wouldn't want to do that either. I don't trust that system at all. Never mind the voting. But yeah, they just won't let you out of it. They won't let you out of it. It's incredible. And excuse me, Fluke Man is here. Glad you could make it, as well as Ragnar joining us this afternoon. Well, it's afternoon where I am. It may be different for you, but that's how they rope you. They want to make us like Australia, where it's mandatory. And if you don't vote and you don't have a viable excuse, then you have to pay a fine. They give you a citation for not voting. Excuse me again. But yeah, again, she went back to it again, tired of the letters, tired of the phone calls, the robocalls. Hi, this is so and so. There's nobody there. Tired of the text messages and all the rest of what they put you through, trying to browbeat you into voting. All the messages that you get, your neighbors may be able to find out that you haven't voted. What are you going to do? Set them on me like a pack of dogs? I dare them to come here and tell me I didn't vote. I just, they really want to pressure you. And the more they push you, the less you want to do it. The less you want to do it. And I almost wonder if that's not the reasoning behind that. Because you ask yourself, for example, how does AOC keep getting elected? Well, last year, no one even ran against her. Or the last cycle, no one even ran against her. The cycle before that, I think there was one person. This cycle, there's one person. She can't even be bothered to debate him. You wonder how these people stay in. It's because nobody's going out to vote anyways, because they're so disenfranchised from it. They don't even give a shit. They don't care. They don't care anymore because they're tired of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to deliberately discourage people from going out by annoying the hell out of them so that they can get the people in that they want. Brian says, I bet if she voted, it would be on one of those machines or services that switch your Republican vote to Democrat or one of those. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me at all. As we jump into the first actual news story here, now that I'm done with that. I'm done beating that to death. I just thought it was hilarious. I was like, oh, look, you got something in the mail. You got something in the mail. Because it was a voter registration card. She was like, no. Yes, it can. Anyway, National Review. You may have heard this already because this just happened. It happened within the last 24 hours. Hundreds of Harvard students and faculty walk out of commencement ceremony to protest Israel. Hundreds out of thousands. That's negligible. But the fact that this even happened, all the people in the kaifas and the Palestinian flags and all the shouting and screaming and bullshit that went on there, it's an embarrassment, and it tells you exactly why it may be that sending your child to college or university at this point could be the worst mistake you ever make. So much for the American dream of higher education. Hundreds of Harvard University students and faculty walked out of the school's commencement ceremony on Thursday wearing kaifas and waving Palestinian flags and anti-Israel banners. Videos and reports from the Cambridge campus show. The Harvard Out of Occupied Palestine, or HOOP coalition, HOOP, there it is, which organized the university's anti-Israel encampment, posted a video of students marching out of the area in which commencement was held on its Instagram page. The video shows students chanting, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, the occupation has got to go," and is accompanied by a caption that reads, "Over 1,000 of Harvard students and faculty have walked out of graduation." That's not necessarily true. That's an exaggeration, but a couple of hundred people did leave. Shabbos Kestenbaum, who graduated from Harvard Divinity School on Thursday and is currently involved in a lawsuit against the university over its inaction on campus anti-Semitism, posted a video on his X account capturing the scene in which protesters, both students and faculty, rose from their seats and walked towards the exit, chanting, "Let them walk," and "Disclose, divest, we will not stop and we will not rest," and inviting those around them to the People's Commencement. That sounds very communist. An event student activist groups organized as a substitute for Harvard's official ceremony. Harvard did not respond to a request for comment. I bet you they didn't. They ought to be humiliated. They created that monster. They created that monster because they have created an entire generation of student activists and somehow are surprised that they turn around and bit the hand that force-fed them. So there we go. And I was going to explain this, but I see it's in the next paragraph. The chant, "Let them walk," refers to Harvard's decision to withhold the degrees from 13 seniors facing disciplinary action for their roles in the school's encampment. The faculty of the university's Arts and Sciences colleges voted in a Monday meeting to provide those 13 students with diplomas, a move the Harvard Corporation, the university's highest governing body, rejected. Well, they organized the occupation of one of the buildings and got riot police involved. So yeah, they don't deserve their diplomas at this point. Each of these students has been found by the college's administrative board, the body established by the FAS or faculty to investigate and adjudicate disciplinary matters, have violated the university's policies by their conduct during their participation in the recent encampment in Harvard Yard, a Harvard Yard. If if you're from Nantasket Beach. The Harvard Corporation said in a statement explaining their decision. Shruti Kumar, a graduating senior who gave an address at the commencement ceremony soon after interim President Alan Garber received a chorus of boos, reportedly went off script and slammed the university for its decision not to confer degrees to those 13 students, pulling a piece of paper from her graduation regala that was seemingly not included in her prepared and approved remarks, and she professed her disapproval of Harvard's leadership. Yeah, she did do that. I don't know where the hell she's from or what she cares. She actually looks like she's from India. She can go back there too. They can all leave. They could all leave. As we catch up some of the comments here really quickly. Unknown Nose thinks drywall is an agent of Satan. Drywall? Okay. And Doc Galt says, so none of them graduated then, right? None of them should. None of them should. The hell with them. Helter says perhaps those who walked out in protest should have backed up their beliefs by not accepting their diplomas. Good point, Helter, because I bet you they sure do want that piece of paper. Although, you know, when you're at commencement, you don't get an actual diploma. It's not ready, right? You just get a scroll and there's nothing in there. I didn't go to my college graduation. I got mine in the mail, but it doesn't come for like a while after. I don't think you get the actual diploma on stage, if I remember correctly. Flukeman says Microsoft announced Windows 11 will record everything that you do, and you can check it in your historical activities. What if people don't want their actions recorded? It can also slow down your devices. It already does, and that's why I always shut off cloud. I always disable cloud, and it always comes back. It always comes back every time the computer restarts, and then I have to shut it down again because that does slow down everything. It hinders your progress on the computer. It hinders uploads and downloads. The damn thing is a nightmare. And if Microsoft 11 is going to do that, or Windows 11, yeah, it's going to slow down everything. And no, I wouldn't want everything recorded either. Mind your own damn business. And Chillin' Dave is here, as well as Monkey. They want to record everything so that they can try to force feed you product. They want to analyze you so they know what kind of advertising to throw at you. Dragon says they borrowed all that tuition money for nothing. They should have gone to trade schools instead and not wasted their college years whining. Yeah, well, again, I mean, most of these kids, and not all of them, but most of them, they've not really ever had to contribute to their own upbringing or their own personal situations. Someone else has always handled it. Mommy, daddy, big daddy, government, or big brother, I should say. Someone's always paid for everything, directed everything, set everything up, tore everything down, told them where to go and what to do. And they haven't matured. They haven't matured. We talked about that a lot actually earlier in the week when we were talking about Cameron on CNN, and I played the video clip. As a man is 48 years old, has not matured. His body is 36 years ahead of his mind. Hasn't grown up, as it were. That's what it means when the Bible tells you it's time to put away childish things. Not that, like I said, if you play video games or you collect toys or something like that, that doesn't mean that you're immature, but an immature mentality as you go through life as if you were still a child. Or once upon a time, they used to refer to that as infantile behavior. Unknown No says they're having home repair issues. Okay. Chillin' Dave says now with diploma in hand, they can go to work for the UN anywhere but here. The UN doesn't even want them. No worldly experience, no understanding, no reasoning skills, no tolerance. Although they want tolerance from everyone else, they want it to be a one-way street. So yeah, they walked out, and I think everybody who walked out ought to have their diploma suspended. And I think faculty who walked out should be on administrative leave. You know what goes on at that university. You don't like it, you shouldn't have been there. And you're trying to force your political beliefs about something that's going on halfway around the world that you know zero about. And all you have to do is look through the comments on any discussion on it. Even in here, there are people that come in here and they don't understand either. They don't understand the mentalities of the Middle East. They don't understand the people. They don't understand the history. They really don't. They don't get it. And if you don't get it, you should back off. Back up out of it. Again, these are kids with no direction. There's nothing going on in their present. They see no viable, realistic future, and they have no past. Their entire lives are a blur of bullshit from TikTok and wherever. There's nothing to be nostalgic for, something we've talked about a few times. Where's the nostalgia? We have a lot of nostalgia growing up. There's a lot of things that were cultural icons. MTV was a cultural icon. It changed a lot, culturally speaking. It changed a lot in pop culture. It had an impact. What in the last 20 years has had an impact on anything? The last 20 years, nothing really interesting has happened. The Walking Dead, maybe that's close, because there were people that were, for the first like 3 or so seasons, mesmerized by The Walking Dead. And it was sort of reminiscent of how it was back in the day when the next installment of Seinfeld came out, for example. And everybody the next day was talking about, oh, did you catch Seinfeld last night? Or The Simpsons was a big deal. And people would talk about that. There's no TV shows that are like that anymore. So you don't even have that as a cultural icon to anchor to. They've got no past, no present, no future. So they'll latch on to anything. This came along and they jumped on the bandwagon. And they were directed that way. So they were more so herded onto the bandwagon because they really don't know what they've got themselves roped up into. They really don't know. They don't know what's going on. And again, follow the money. These colleges and universities have been taking billions of dollars from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia, from Lebanon, from China for years. for years, going all the way back to 2017. They've been influencing colleges and universities. And now look, surprise, follow the money. Follow the money, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a shame. It makes you think of Machiavelli's The Prince. He said, admire people's dedication to something, even if it's misguided, because there's the potential to redirect it to something else. It's something like that. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. So yeah, it's nice to see them so dedicated to something. It's a shame they can't be dedicated to something useful. How about worrying about something that's going on in the United States? How about that? Everybody in this country is always worried about something that's going on halfway around the damn world, and we can't take care of our own homes. Doc says they did 3 tours in Iraq. What you see will change you and make you appreciate what you have. People have forgotten what humbleness is. No kidding, Doc. And especially, I think about that with my, in terms of my wife as well. Because she 21 years in the military. My wife, 21 years retired, and she did tours in Iraq and Afghanistan as an emergency field medic, and she was also in the 82nd Airborne. So, and forced to treat many of the enemy. I mean, and especially in Afghanistan, I think that's all she did was clean up suicides and treat the enemy. They'd come in, and you could tell they were wounded from what looked like it could have been skirmishes with American forces. You can't question them. Oh, just patch them up and send them on their way. Why? So they can attack us again? It's insulting. But I digress. Brian says some kids think the Avengers Endgame is the most emotional movie ever, more emotional than classics like Gladiator, Forrest Gump, Saving Private Ryan, etc. Endgame was probably the worst of the Avengers films. I think they really blew it, and they also shoehorned some agenda shit in there that they hadn't done previously. Unknown says they never followed Seinfeld, Friends, etc. I stopped watching Simpsons in the 90s, gave up on pop culture as a teen because following it cost money and we were poor. Okay. Seinfeld I liked. Friends I could never get into. I saw a couple of episodes of it, and I was like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And Doc says they were a combat medic as well. Small world. Hey, there you go. There you go. I mean, hell, she did her time. And man, it's a fight for her to get her disability rights too. I'll tell you what, because she was hurt, and trying to get compensated for that is not easy. As we bounce around, and this kind of ties in, and we talked about this part of this earlier in the week. Newsweek article. Flag at half-mast in New York for passing of Iran's leader sparks backlash. Oh, there he is. There's the Iranian president, or former president, Ebrahim Rashi meets. Ebrahim Rashi meets, I believe. There he was, because allegedly, because it could have been faked, but you don't know. Could have been shot down, could have been sabotaged. One way or another, his helicopter met with a demise. But apparently we have flags at half-mast for this guy? Are you kidding me? Raccoon says they're proud to say they never watched a minute of Friends. Yeah, like I said, I saw a couple of episodes. I didn't care for it. I thought it was stupid. Big Bang Theory, too. I watched a couple of episodes of that, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get what all of the hullabaloo is about this show. It's actually pretty amazingly dull and not funny. But back to the article. The United Nations on Tuesday lowered the organization's flags outside its New York headquarters as a sign of respect for Ebrahim Raisi, the deceased Iranian president, sparking criticism from some on social media. Raisi, who has been widely touted as a potential successor to Ali Khamenei as Iran's supreme leader, died in a helicopter crash on Sunday, along with the Iranian foreign minister and other officials. Iranian opposition activists dubbed Raisi as the Butcher of Tehran because of his presence on a 4-man committee that in 1988 allegedly ordered the execution of thousands of political opponents. That's true. And it was actually, I believe, George Bush Jr. who attached that Butcher of Tehran and making him the one of the modern axes of evil. Is that correct? Amnesty International said the Iranian regime was believed to have killed between 4,500 and 5,000 prisoners from August 1988 to February 1989. Yari Cohen, an employee of the political director's office of the Israeli Foreign Ministry, posted a video on X of the UN flags being lowered at half-mast outside the body's headquarters in New York. The post, which has received more than 55,000 views, was widely reposted as the footage racked up millions of views across the platform. Blah, blah, viewers weighed in. I don't care. I don't care what other people had to say about it. And they do this now. They give you a bunch of quotes from like X or TikTok or something. I don't really care about that. The bottom line here is it's not just the UN that lowered its flag to half-mast. There's other places that did it too, and that's a violation of the protocol of lowering your flag. That's the violation of that protocol. Flugman says West should reinstate national service. Doesn't have to be in the military. 16 to 25 not working or in education for a minimum of 24 hours a week to work in health services, technician, even if it's a cleaning up job. That would be interesting, but there's a slippery slope there, though, to who can be forced to do what and what the repercussions will be. You know, that I mean, that's akin to conscripted labor, which is the partner of slavery. And Brian wants to know what I think of the sitcom Full House. I barely remember that show, to be honest. But if it was on ABC, it probably sucked. Anyways, Chillin says should be throwing rolls of toilet paper and having cake parties for his hard landing. Indeed. And Doc says I wouldn't be surprised if a 3-letter agency was involved in that helicopter crash. I'm waiting for the accusations. I'm waiting for them to start throwing accusations around at some point or another. An unknown says you can't rail against the military industrial complex and oppressive bureaucracy and demand mandatory civil service that only feeds the beasts, or any other kind of mandatory service for any purposes, whether it's volunteerism or what. Because again, yeah, that's a slippery slope that when you're talking about basically conscripting people, oh, you're useless, so we're going to put you to work doing volunteer work, is basically what that boils down to. It sounds good in principle, but it opens up for a lot of mess. The only time I thought that made any sense is when Reagan instituted what he used to refer to as the workfare program, something he started in California that I'm sure they don't do anymore. And that is if you are on welfare and you're not at least working part-time somewhere, we'll find volunteer work for you while you're collecting your benefits. For A, so that you can contribute back something and you're not just sitting around collecting a check. And B, because it will count as work experience for when you do find a job. That makes sense to me because if you're collecting a welfare check, you are getting paid. You're getting something. And Helter says the United Nations is a joke. They lowered the flag in half to honor of someone like the Iranian president who was responsible for taking so many innocent lives. And it's truly shameful. Well, so is the United Nations. So is the United Nations. And speaking of Iran, now that he's dead, this has been leaked. Whistleblower time. We'll see how long this guy lives after this one, because this is a whistleblower against the U.S. government or the Obama administration in particular. Yeah. Western Journal article. Obama administration actively interfered with the FBI's efforts to arrest individuals illegally aiding Iran's nuclear program, according to leaked documents. And one more here from Nature. Nature Nerd says most of the wars we fought over the last few decades have been funded by Iran. The West should not respect a man that killed thousands of their people. You would think so. And I'm sure it's an insult to anyone who was deployed overseas in the Middle East because of any of that. It's an insult to these veterans. But what doesn't the government do to insult the veterans at this point? It's shameful. It's shameful. So, article reads: State Department during the administration of President Barack Obama allegedly worked to hinder the FBI's efforts to arrest individuals under investigation for financially assisting Iran's nuclear weapons program, according to whistleblower accounts. The allegations were made public Wednesday when Republican Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin published a letter they had sent Tuesday to the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Grassley and Johnson complained to Blinken that the then Secretary of State John Kerry, according to the whistleblower disclosures, actively interfered. There's John Kerry again. Oh man, Herman Munster himself actively interfered with the FBI when the Bureau was executing arrest warrants on individuals in the U.S. The individuals in question, according to the letter, were suspected of illegally supporting Iranian efforts, including financial efforts, to develop weapons of mass destruction and its ballistic missile program. The senators further alleged that the then Attorney General Loretta Lynch and then FBI Director James Comey did not satisfactorily act to thwart Kerry's obstructive efforts against law enforcement. As a result of such handling of the matter, the FBI lost its opportunity to arrest the main suspects in 6 such instances of State Department interference, the senators said. Grassley and Johnson included partially redacted FBI emails in their letter. This included an email that, according to the senators, indicated one of the subjects the Bureau had lost was on its terrorism watch list. Another suspect had managed to escape to Iran in time. The subject the FBI had failed to apprehend was supposed to be arrested mid-flight, the record said, according to the senators. However, the State Department blocked the individual's detainment, and the person in question was only refused admission into the country. According to the letter, 2 suspects were arrested only after the Trump administration State Department reversed the Obama administration's imposed block on their arrests. Wow. All of the incidents occurred while the Obama administration was working with Iran on the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, better known as the Iran nuclear deal. So wanted terrorists who were on the FBI's wanted list that were helping to fund Iran's nuclear weapons program were hindered by Loretta Lynch, John Kerry, and James Comey under the Obama administration's direction. Wow. That is incredible. That is incredible, but that's been leaked now through whistleblowers and now being challenged by certain senators who want an explanation. And they may or may not get an explanation. And if they do get one, is anything going to be done about it? Do you think James Comey is going to get in trouble for that? How about Loretta Lynch? Do you think John Kerry is going to have to face any waves for this? You think so? I'm waiting for it. You think they'll be called before a congressional hearing and found guilty of anything? That's what always kills me about this stuff. Is it, this has been exposed now that the Obama administration had these 3 talking heads hinder capturing wanted terrorists, and they're going to get away with it. Way to go. Fluke Man says they'll be paid rather than opening borders. Tony Blair, former British Prime Minister, opens the border in the sole purpose to plug up the lack of workers. But if he had made young people work. Okay, I think something was lost there. And Doc says that doesn't surprise me. When pallets of cash were sent to them in the middle of the night, I knew where their loyalties were. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me either. And it's nice that it's been exposed now. But what's the point? What's actually going to be done about it? What's going to be done about it? What are the repercussions going to be? At the very least, can you say that it won't happen again? Can you give me that much? It won't happen again. Not likely. It'll happen again and again and again and other things like it. This is why I don't know how it is that people can sit there and be like, oh, well, that was all in the past and our government would never do anything like that now. How many times in history can you find things like this being repeated or other atrocities? Other atrocities. How long before we find out that the whole C virus shot mandate was a scam? Hypothetically speaking, I have to say. Find out that it was a scam and that those injections are actually harmful, very harmful. It wouldn't surprise me at all, thinking back to like the Tuskegee experiments or thinking back to the oatmeal experiments that happened in New England when the government was feeding radioactive cereal to kids in orphanages to test the results. Or when the Air Force was spraying radioactive dust on farms in the Midwest to test the results back in the 50s. And denied it. And then like 10, 15 years ago, you find out, oh, it was true. That's been disclosed now. Yeah, we did that. Chillin says we still vote these bozos back in office. Well, no one runs against them. That's what I was talking about earlier with like AOC. People are like, how the hell is she up for her 4th term? She doesn't have anyone running against her. One guy's running against her, and he's not going to win because he's from Wall Street. And so he'll be automatically demonized, even though he has no history of any wrongdoing. It might be nice to have somebody with a business sense doing the job. Maybe he won't waste as much tax money. But to be like, oh, he's from Wall Street. He's an evil money grubber. We can't vote for him if anybody even goes out to vote. And again, the last cycle, no one even ran against her. So, I mean, 2 people her and her mother could have gone and voted and she would have won. And Doc says they lied about the C virus origin already. Yeah, they did. And that's been exposed recently. What's going to be done about that? Nothing. And Raccoon says now they're trying to make bird flu contagious and a vax is already in the works. This is crimes against humanity and no one does anything about it. No, they don't. No, they don't. But how do you fight it? It gets to the point where in business, they call it the 800-pound gorilla. Like Walmart is considered an 800-pound gorilla. It's too big to move and it knows it. Our government is too big to push. Who can possibly afford to go up against it? It's just not that easy. And Chillin says another obvious cluster. Yeah, snafu. Snafu, as they used to say in the military. Fluke Man, how long did it take for the government to come about the infected factor 8 plasma? I don't know. But I mean, who's going to be held accountable, if anyone ever is? That's the question. And then they'll just find one guy to hang it on. That's my big theory, my big conspiracy theory about Fauci, is that he's the scapegoat guy. And that if it ever really blows up, okay, Fauci, you're going to go to jail so that everyone else doesn't have to. And he'll cover for 1,000 people that also should go to jail but won't. And as long as he keeps his mouth shut, then he won't be found hung by a pair of shoelaces somewhere when the cameras suddenly went out. Unknown No says our government set fire to an entire city right here at home, experimented on U.S. citizens, lost nuclear weapons, and the list goes on. It'll never happen here. It's peak delusional thinking. Yeah, it happens all the time, and they admit to it. They just admit to it in spurts after people have forgotten about it or don't care. You know, by the time they talked about the kids with the oatmeal experiment, most of them were dead and gone. They had a lot of health problems. There were very few survivors, and they're all, you know, they're older than I am, the ones that are still alive, or the people in the military that were exposed by Great Britain and the United States to nuclear testing in the 50s. Soldiers or Navy personnel. I know it was Navy personnel with the United Kingdom. Correct me if I'm mixing this up. We were told to sit out on deck and cover our eyes with our hands, and then we saw a flash so bright we could see right through our hands. I recall someone expressing they set off a nuclear blast in the water in front of Navy ships with hundreds of men sitting on deck. They had no idea what they were doing because they can. Oh, but that would never happen again. No, of course not. That would never happen again. I think that was the British government that did that with the Navy. I know the American military did it in the desert. And Doc says I'm correct. Okay, so it was the British government with the Navy ships. And those guys had, like, they were plagued with health problems, obviously, exposed to a radioactive blast like that. And Nature Nerd says it was the Marshall Islands nuclear test. Thank you. I can't remember everything. I remember the stories. I don't always remember the names. Fluke Man says the Fall Guys family will be well taken care of, believing their family member was guilty, but don't understand where the large sum of money came from. Yeah, he just saved it up. It was good stock trading. That's what happened. It was clever stock trading. Or they do know, and they just know to keep their mouth shut because he got Epsteined. It's like, oops, I don't know anything about it. I don't want to be found hung dead in a cell either. Yeah, who would? Who would? We're going to bounce here in a moment into a Newsweek article and see if that transition works well. Restream has been doing better. I worked with it a little, and I did that one impromptu live to experiment with it with people who popped in to help out with that. So it's doing better. But yeah, I mean, that's delusional to think that your government wouldn't do something to you, wouldn't experiment on you, wouldn't put something in the water, something in the air. You know, I mean, you're talking about every government has the opportunity for conscription. A government that would force you to go to war because of something that they did or because of one of their personal interests, they're not going to go fight. Why should you? Well, because you'll go to prison if you don't. Nature Nerd says, look what Russia did in the Polygon Kazakhstan nuclear test as an example there. And they all do it. You know, the bigger governments do more, but they all do it. They all do something. They all play around somehow and force the citizens into some sort of a situation, basically because they can. Because and the bigger the government is, the harder it is to push back. The harder it is to defend yourself. I know that a lot of people, especially in the prepping community, they like to go by the moniker of 3%. Oh, 3%ers, because 3% of the people were behind the Revolutionary War, and we can do it again. No, you can't. We won the Revolutionary War because England's interests were overseas. They are already having conflict with France right on their border. They can't sit there trying to fight a war halfway around the world where the only communication is by ship and you got to wait 4 months for a message. Okay, we sent more troops. How did that go? Well, after the 8-month round trip, maybe we'll know. That doesn't work. It doesn't work. So they gave up. They were like, screw America. They couldn't afford it. They didn't want to bother with it. That's why we won. With modern logistics, are you kidding me? No way. No way. They have the money, the resources, the manpower, and people willing to do almost anything to keep their check coming in. Yeah, it's an entirely different landscape now than it was in the late 1700s. Anyways, we jump back into the article. Newsweek, private homes may become homeless shelters as city grapples with migrants. Oh, what a great idea. What a great idea. And this is Maine. And that's the governor, Janet Mills. Boy, she looks tired. At least she's not trying to disguise her age with a shit ton of makeup and purple hair, even though obviously her hair has been bleached. I'll give her credit for that. She's got bad arthritis too. You can see it. Just making an observation, not picking on her for it. I know that's painful. So here we go. A Maine city is weighing an ordinance to accommodate a large influx of homeless people. The vast majority of them are, guess what? Migrants, with multiple housing options, including private single-family homes. The migrants, described by one Westbrook city official as new Mainers, they're illegal immigrants, Jack, who receive between 90 and 95% of the city's welfare benefits. Oh my God. Oh, I just got thrown way off track here with this article. So your illegal immigrants are claiming 90 to 95% of the city's current welfare benefits, and you don't see the problem. You can't see the problem. Let me get back on track here. I'm sorry. That just really threw me. Anyways, his suggestion is that they would be housed in private homes, churches, and community centers under a proposed ordinance presented to city officials Monday. However, private residences and churches would not have to take in homeless individuals unless they expressed a desire to do so. Quote, what we can afford in this ordinance are shelters in single-family homes, which are deemed to be for emergency shelter families, said Jenny Franceschi, Westbrook's director of planning and code enforcement, according to the Maine Wire. A church that has a room that they utilize for the purpose of baked bean suppers, or educational or social needs, could take that room and make it into a shelter if the need in the community necessitated it, she adds. Okay, so you want churches to basically get rid of the services that they provide to the community, like daycare or soup kitchens, and fill it with beds so that they can collect a check for your welfare immigrants. Yeah. But if they housed an actual homeless person without this ordinance, you'd give them a fine and you'd take them to court, because we've already read articles where that's happened, where they've actually tried to help legitimate homeless people, churches, and other people in the communities in Maine and in other states, and they ended up in court. But if it's migrants, who again make up nearly 95% of your current welfare payments, that's okay, even if it creates a disadvantage for the people that the churches and other services provide to the community already. So you want to further hinder your community. Oh my God. Nature Nerd says non-citizens draining the city's coffers as taxes rise for everyone else. Exactly. That's a classic example of the problem. 90 to 95%. I'm hung up right there. The rest of the article can take a walk. 90 to 95% of your welfare is going to illegal immigrants. Oh, excuse me, new Mainers. New Mainers, they're calling them. 90 to 95%. And you want to spend more tax money to create an incentive program for people to take these illegal immigrants into their homes or into churches or into other charitable organizations, and then even have the nerve to suggest that you could put them. It says if you have a room that is utilized for the purpose of baked bean suppers or educational or social needs, you could turn that room into a shelter. Educational, like if you have Sunday school, or if you have private school at that church, or a daycare at that church, or if you have food service, or you have a soup kitchen or a pantry. Oh, shut it down and fill it with beds. The nerve of these people. Incredible. Oh my God. Dragon says Klaus Schwab once said something to the effect of, "You will eat bugs and you will own nothing and be happy." These quotes are appropriate for this case. I could have nothing and be happy as long as people like this aren't lording over me and telling me what to do with my life. You know what I mean? You can be in poverty and be a happy, well put together person. You don't have to have everything. You don't have to have $1,000 sneakers and a $300 t-shirt. You really don't. You can be happy without all that stuff, but leave me alone. Basically. Oh, unbelievable. Unknown says normally churches are fined for letting homeless occupy their property. Exactly. Churches have even been fined because a homeless person was seen sleeping in their hedges. Yeah. And that's what they're supposed to do, is community outreach. But they're hindered from that. They're hindered from that by city, state, and local governments. Oh, unless they're illegal. Unless they're illegal immigrants, then suck it up. Doc says, why doesn't the governor of Maine open up her home to migrants if she doesn't fine her? Oh, she probably already has them doing her landscaping. Yeah, Doc says lead by example. And Nature Nerd says New Mariners or New Mainers, is that a new state? It will be after they take over. It will be. Oh, God. It says Franceschi told Newsweek. You notice how in all these articles like this, all the leadership is completely female? Just throwing it out there. Franceschi told Newsweek on Friday that the ordinance under consideration would allow single or two-family homes to be licensed as emergency shelters. It also would allow a private civic organization like a church to license a community room within the building as an emergency shelter space. Yeah, that way they can disrupt all of the church's functions. And you know what? A lot of these places, especially on the East Coast, a lot of these city ordinances and stuff will prohibit you from letting out a room in your home. So if you wanted to, like if you owned a house and you have an extra room and you put out an ad for like, oh, I've got an extra room if somebody wants to do a rooming house kind of thing, and they pay you $100 a week for the use of the room or whatever, you'll get in trouble. You'll get in trouble for that. Oh, but this is fine. This is fine. Oh my God. That varies from state to state, but I know you can get in trouble for trying to lease a room out. And Nature Nerd reminds us that 13 counties in Oregon want to leave Oregon and join Idaho, making Idaho the third largest state if it happened. if they ever allow that, which they probably won't, because then Oregon would lose tax money. Basically, they're not going to want to allow that to happen. They're not going to want to allow that to happen. Oh my God. That just drives me nuts. That whole scenario is embarrassing. Just the hypocrisy of it. The hypocrisy of it. And then the realization they're going to sit there and admit that 90 to 95% of what the city is paying in welfare benefits is going to illegal immigrants now. 90 to 95%. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. They're going to bankrupt this country, which might be the plan. That might be the plan. They'll bankrupt the country, and that would put the government in a position to artificially create a reset. And then they can do whatever they want. They can shoehorn in all these crazy laws on us as if we're not already crushed with laws and regulations and taxes and fines and fees and bullshit. Then they can shoehorn in all kinds of stuff, and people will allow for it because they're so desperate. They won't try to fight it. But the United States is too big, and there's too many people, and it will backfire. They're not going to be able to clean up the mess once they created it. I don't know what they think. Everybody always thinks they're going to. Everybody always thinks that they're going to manage it. I'll create a problem. I'll create a solution. The problem will be so bad you'll beg for the solution, even though it's terrible. Solution won't fix the problem. Things continue to get worse, anyways. That's how it goes in real life. It probably looks good on paper. And Damien says UNC has the best beard. Has the best beard. Who's UNC? An unknown says Cascadia subduction zone may make the decision for them. And Doc says they already have bankrupt the country. Everything is credit. And Unknown says it's the Cloward Piven strategy. Yeah, Unknown Knows used to talk about that a lot. He used to be in here more often. I don't think I've seen him but a couple of times recently. But yeah, that's, like I said, everything looks great on paper. It always, every law, every regulation, oh, this is great. This will work fine. That's why everybody thinks, oh, socialism, that's a great idea. It looks so fantastic. Yeah, on paper. Then try it and see what a mess you have. Oh, well, we'll call it democratic socialism this time. We'll add democratic to it, and that'll make it better somehow. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work just great. No, it won't. It'll be a freaking disaster. I've said this several times. Damien says, uncle, yourself in this case. Oh, I'm the uncle. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. My wife likes the beard. My wife is the one that asked me to grow it out to see what it looked like, and now she likes it, so I've got to keep it. Anyways, she said she wants me to get it to the ZZ top stage. So we'll see how that looks. But I've said it 1,000 times if I've said it once. All right. Any form of government, socialist, communist, capitalist, Democratic, Republican, any form of government that you have, a monarchy, a dictatorship, even a dictatorship can be a benevolent dictatorship. Any form of government can be made to work if you can trust the people in charge. Show me any government in the world under any type of government establishment where the leadership can be 100% trusted. Keeping in mind also that the more you lean towards a government that has near total or total control without any type of input from its people, which is where you see the failing of socialism, communism, dictatorships, and so on. The more authority they have, the more corrupt they're likely to end up. Brian says that everything socialism touches turns to shit. I guess, well, out of sight, out of mind. The young people today didn't learn anything about the Cold War and don't know what Eastern Europe looked like between 1950 and the fall of the Soviet Union. You know what I mean? You have to actually go and study that, and they're not fit to. Nature Nerd says, imagine how much stronger the economy would be if it wasn't built on so much debt. Yeah, it didn't used to be, but it's gotten so bad. It's gotten really so bad. But with that, we are at the top of the hour. Miss Kitty stayed with me the whole day, or the whole broadcast, anyways. One more here. Damien says, exactly, a king would be good if there was good like Ned Stark or Aragorn. Yeah, Aragorn, making a Lord of the Rings reference there. But with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I'll go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and/or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find me on YouTube Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the live portion on Coffee Talk channel. That's at Coffee Talk Live, as well as Prepper University. Please do find those channels and subscribe if you would. I'd appreciate it. You can also find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, and that is at Coffee Talk Chat. So if you could join me there, that would be great. And of course, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here this afternoon. Hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you